Minecraft. No game quite has the blank canvas and infinite brush set that Minecraft effortlessly provides. With its limited 256 blocks of world height, the scale is pretty massive. As I started to build bigger, it felt like a whole different game, a massive resolution I had at my disposal to create any curve and tessellation I could imagine. The thing with Minecraft, though, is that despite this potential for complex geometry and a divine scale, the details are where the beautiful simplicity of the game really stands out. A small patch of land with immaculately placed greenery and organic custom trees moves me in a way my grand cathedrals could never. All this is to say, I think I've caught myself up in the grandeur of Minecraft's outer limits. I kinda want to cultivate a world where I don't have netherite and enchantments and mob farms and sorting systems to worry about. I don't want to rush my starter base just because I have bigger and better projects in mind as soon as I get that villager trading hall set up. So welcome to the Stone Age. In this series, I want to slow down and build my 300th structure with the same care and patience as my first ever attempt at something more aesthetically pleasing than a dirt cube. The basic idea of this series is limitations. Limitations inspire creativity, but they also encourage prudence. When I have a limit on what I can build with, I'm more free to explore every finite possibility that I have with these limited blocks. So the parameters of this series are very simple. I can't craft anything with diamonds, save for maybe a jukebox, and I cannot apply enchantments to any of my gear. Furthermore, I can't use any late game items such as shulker boxes and elytras. These very simple limitations actually make a massive impact on what can be done, and more importantly, the pace at which I can do so. I hope you guys enjoy the quiet moments of Minecraft as much as I do, so I'll say this once again, welcome to the Stone Age. Loading into a new world for the very first time is always exciting, but especially so after a new update. This is my first survival world on 1.17, and a new update can only really be experienced in the intended play format, which is survival. The first biome I noticed myself in is an extreme hills biome. Extreme hills biomes have animals, occasional trees, and stunning topography. The grass is a muted deep green, and oak leaves turn an almost bluish cool tone in these biomes. The most notable features unique to extreme hills are natural emerald ore generation and the possibility of the rare gravelly mountains variation of the biome. The entire surface of these biomes is covered in gravel, which is a super useful resource made to late game in these large quantities. I'm not going to settle here, as I've had my fair share of building these biomes on an SMP I ran with my friends last summer, so I move on. I turn around and notice adjacent to the extreme hills a giant tree taiga biome, a pretty rare biome that features the natural generation of massive 2x2 spruce trees. These biomes have a multitude of unique features, including natural podzol generation, mossy cobble generation in the form of these small lumps of stone. They're extremely beautiful biomes, but require a large amount of terraforming when building and are kind of difficult to traverse. For these reasons, I decided to look for a more habitable biome for my first settlement. As I head across the river to the forest biome behind me, I grab a few pieces of sugarcane out of habit. Normally, a sugarcane farm is a must for a starter base, but since I won't be doing any enchanting, I don't really have any need for one. So, to save on precious inventory space, I decide to let the sugarcane float down the river. Note the change in the hotbar texture for sugarcane. It's a 1.17 feature that I hadn't really noticed until now. For similar reasons to the giant tree taiga, the forest biome is not ideal for a starter base. I noticed the edge of a plains biome when I looked down the river, so I'm headed there to settle down. Plains biomes are one of the best places to build a starter base. They're easy to build on and traverse, spawn plenty of animals, and have the chance of containing villages. As I make my way towards the plain, I walk past a little pool in the shape of a cross, which is kind of cool. I say hello to the chickens as I make my way past, and before I know it, I'm in the plains biome. The terrain here is beautiful, with a wooded hills biome between me and the extreme hills behind, providing a gradual increase in elevation, very reminiscent of how real mountains gradually fade into the surrounding landscape. Alright, one final biome check. There's an ocean on the far side of the plains from where I came in, cementing this as the perfect place to set up shop. Oceans contain shipwrecks, a great source of early game iron and food. They're also great for early game exploration, as using a boat negates the need to constantly replenish hunger. Later game, of course, oceans have a plethora of useful features, including ocean monuments for prismarine, coral reefs for interesting blocks, and sea turtles for scoot farms. For now though, I find a nice flat area and punch my first tree. A nice lone oak next to a single pumpkin, which is pretty rare to find in a plains biome. My hunger's running low, so I decide to go head into the giant tree taiga to forage for sweet berries and mushrooms for mushroom stew. Apparently dead bushes grow in giant tree taiga biomes, which I didn't know. I found a lava pool which will come in really handy later since I can't use a diamond pick to get obsidian for another portal. After all that, it's time to get down to business. I'm not a devout Minecraft vegan, but I didn't want to take a shortcut to getting a bed by killing sheep for wool. Instead, I wanted to rush iron before nightfall to allow me to shear sheep and craft a bed. I head into this cave here and start crafting. After getting some stone tools, I grab some coal and head into my first encounter with hostile mobs. These skeletons are giving me some trouble, but I managed to make quick work of them with a massive 4.5 hearts to spare. This is where something really cool happens. It turns out that Spider had spawned from a dungeon spawner that was just down the cave. This is actually pretty astonishing. The chances that I would go in the right direction from spawn to have that exposed dungeon spawner nearly at sea level, it seems pretty slim. To top it off, there's some iron exposed on the ceiling, so I finally have everything I need to make my shears. I light up the spawner and mine the iron, even finding a bucket and some enchanted books in the dungeon chests. The melon seeds are actually one of the best items in the chests, as melons can be very difficult to find depending on the surrounding biomes. Finally, as the first day comes to a close, I smelt up the iron and mine some copper. I've missed my ideal window to shear the sheep, as it's already nighttime, but I'm still able to sneak in a shear and make it back to my cave safely. Well, mostly safely. So, this is the end of the first day. Having spent the day exploring and gathering materials, I finally got the last achievement possible on the first day of my new world. Sweet dreams.
1 a.m., eyes closed, I'm slowly falling to the music and the atmosphere.
Almost perfectly on cue at the end of the first day, I reached the second day dilemma. My inventory's full. The purpose of this series is not to rush anything, so I'm not going to make a terrible starter base. Instead, I'm just going to spend a few days and set up my bed and chests right in the plains. What is a home but something to come back to? If all you do is stay in one place, where can you call home? It's time to leave the plains. The first expedition in a world is always special. It's a sign that I've made my mark on the world, and now I have a place in it. I'm no longer wandering, instead wondering. Wondering what else is out there. What treasures and adventures lie in wait just a few chunks out of render distance. Let's take a brief departure from the Let's Play style of episode 1. As I explore my Minecraft world, let's explore the world of Minecraft. Why don't we talk about shipwrecks? Quick warning, this section might get dangerously stupid. Shipwrecks are a big part of adventure in more ways than one. On the surface, they're a source of material reward for my efforts. The gold, iron, diamonds that the ships guard are a reason to break away from the plains. I can't use diamonds for much, of course, but their scarcity becomes even more fascinating when their purpose is stripped away. The other side of the shipwrecks is a more subtle allure. I'm not mining for ores to smelt, I'm seeking an unknown bank of treasures mined by ancient civilizations lost to time. The stories told by the shipwrecks I plunder are more substantial than the ingots I procure by doing so. The genius of Minecraft's world building is in what's left unexplained, which is a whole lot. The abandoned structures that naturally generate all throughout the world seem to be part of a very cohesive universe, yet understanding that universe seems out of reach. Ironically, the less that is explained, the larger the fictional universe becomes. Every little detail as to why the shipwrecks are there, where the heart of the sea comes from, and how it works could be easily explained. But no matter how many finite explanations are given, the universe will be incomprehensibly more limited than the truly infinite possibilities present in a world left unexplained. This is a classic composition technique employed by authors constantly, especially mystery authors. In my mind, the heart of the sea is the most fascinating story told by the shipwrecks. Buried treasure chests usually have slightly more loot than the treasure chests on the shipwrecks, but the only thing that really differentiates the two is the Heart of the Sea, a rare item only attainable through buried treasure chests. The Heart of the Sea can be crafted into a conduit, arguably the most mystical item in the game. Its origin is unknown, but implied to be somehow affiliated with the guardians present in the ocean monuments. Let's back up for a second though. To craft a conduit, the player needs 8 nautilus shells and a Heart of the Sea. This suggests that nautilus shells have a very close relationship with the Heart of the Sea. Nautilus shells add a whole new dimension to this mystery. They're only obtainable through fishing, and occasionally through drown that hold them. The Nautilus shell item is not accompanied by a Nautilus mob, which raises a lot of questions. Minecraft logic would suggest that Nautilus exists somewhere within the Minecraft universe. Every other item obtainable through fishing has a clear origin through either mobs or naturally generating materials. Every other item. This draws me to the Nautilus shell unlike any other item in the game. Nautiluses are a deep-sea mollusk that generally only inhabit deep oceans greater than 100 meters deep. If we follow the generally accepted idea that one Minecraft block is 1 meter, this means that there are no oceans that can theoretically house nautiluses, as sea level is 63 blocks. There are no oceans that are 100 blocks deep, that we know of. The existence of Nautilus shells suggests that maybe there are sides to the Minecraft universe that can't be observed through gameplay. Instead, these phantom features inhabit a more subconscious, suggestive side of the game. They create a paradox of canonical impossibilities within the game that somehow don't break the player's suspension of disbelief, instead enhancing it. I know most of what there is to know about even the mystical nether and end dimensions, but somehow there's still elements to the game that elude observation. Somehow there are oceans in the overworld where Nautilus swim freely, unobtainable and only evident through the shells that wash up on the shores at my feet. Now that we've talked about Nautilus shells, back to the heart of the sea. It is again unlike any other item in the game. Conduits are often compared to ocean beacons. While beacons and conduits have many similarities, I don't think that's entirely accurate. The water breathing and night vision effects of a conduit are very reminiscent of beacon effects, and the rare prismarine blocks used as power surely resemble the rare minerals and metals used to power beacons. The difference is in the nature of the conduit. A beacon appears to be a mystical item similar to an enchantment table in many ways. There's clearly some magic or something involved in the inner workings, but it's simply a Minecraft block with very unique properties. In contrast, the conduit appears to be alive in a different way than a beacon. An activated conduit presents itself as an undulating eye that spins the water around it. Remember that spinning motion. Hold tight, we're about to go way off the deep end, no pun intended. I'll also be reading a lot of Icelandic and Norwegian words for the next few minutes, so excuse the pronunciation. The achievement for activating a conduit in the Bedrock edition of Minecraft is titled Moskstraumen. This is the only in-game reference to a real-world location as far as I can tell. The Moskstraumen is an ocean current off the coast of Norway characterized by some of the strongest eddies and whirlpools in the world. The possible link between Minecraft conduits, Moskstraumen, and Norse mythology is a pretty fascinating rabbit hole that I'm going to take us down. On the Wikipedia page for Moskstraumen, it mentions that the Old Norse poems known as Edda reference the Moskstraumen. This piqued my interest. If you don't know about the Poetic Edda, it is a compilation of Old Norse poems that originally found in the canon of Norse mythology. It consists mainly of a manuscript called the Codex Regius. Written around the 13th century, this manuscript is often the only surviving source for many of these incredibly important poems. Although many of these poems were likely just retellings of even older stories, the importance of Eddic poems cannot be understated. The Prose Edda is a textbook written in the 13th century, believed to have been written by an Icelandic historian named Snorri Sturluson. I mentioned both because the Poetic Edda is a compilation of the true origins of Norse myths, while the Prose Edda is an extremely early history book that covers much of Norse mythology founded in the Poetic Edda. Alright, so moving on. I couldn't find mention of which Edda mentioned Moskstraumen anywhere on the internet. I ended up having to read the synopsis of every section of the Codex Regius before narrowing it down to the Prose Edda. The third section of the Prose Edda, Skaldskaparmal, turned out to be the one that very likely makes reference to Moskstraumen. The only website with the full English translation is a little bit shaky, but I cross-referenced it with an Icelandic transcription from a reliable source using Google Translate. Everything seemed to check out other than some strange paragraph formatting. This is where it gets interesting. I found a passage describing the story of Grottosonger. This story describes a great-grandchild of Odin named King Frodi, king of modern-day Denmark. According to the legend, King Frodi hired two inhumanly strong servant women named Fenja and Menja. He hired them because he had been given a magic mill named Groti that could make any material appear out of the mill grinder. The problem was that the mill was so large that no human could turn it, but Fenja and Menja had inhuman strength that allowed them to turn it. He ordered them to grind gold from Groti constantly with no time for rest. I can't exactly decipher what happens next with the questionable translation, but a so-called Sea King named Misinger eventually comes along and kills Frody, plundering his riches. I'm not totally sure what a Sea King is, but I assume it means he holds some power over marine travel. It might be a pirate or a military leader of a rivaling country, I'm not exactly sure. In any case, Misinger took Fenja, Menja, and Groti onto his ship, forcing them to grind salt continuously, in a similar fashion to how King Frody ordered them to grind gold. This time, though, the massive amount of salt caused the ship to sink because it was too heavy. To quote the last lines of the story, "And from that time, there has been a whirlpool in the sea where the water falls through the hole in the millstone. It was then that the sea became salt." I was skeptical about whether this was actually the passage referenced in the Wikipedia article, but I did find confirmation on a website called GermanicMythology.com that Moskstraumen is often referenced as the location of this millstone whirlpool. I don't know how reliable that is, but it's enough for me to assume that the location is at least affiliated with this specific myth. Okay, so basically, to recap, this magic millstone that creates rare materials sank a ship and caused the biggest whirlpool known to man, Moskstraumen. Alright, now let's connect some dots. We'll start with connections that hold a lot of merit. Moskstraumen is obviously connected to the Minecraft conduit in some way, as evidenced by the achievement name. The conduit has a spinning motion, but nothing grand like a whirlpool, so this connection doesn't make a ton of sense at face value. That being said, the Moskstraumen is often referenced in old literature as the Navel of the Ocean. Navel of the Ocean bears a large resemblance to the name Heart of the Sea. It's entirely possible and even likely that this is the sole reason the achievement was titled as such. But the myth of Grotsonger does seem to tie in very well. Not only is this myth heavily associated with Moskstraumen, it also fits in with Minecraft really well. I'm gonna throw something out there. What if the Heart of the Sea has to be kept in a buried treasure chest because it can't be kept on the ship? Remember, in the myth, the magic millstone Grody sank the last ship it was on. The spinning around a conduit would resemble the spinning of a millstone a little bit more closely than that of a whirlpool. The connection between Grotsonger and Minecraft shipwrecks is weak at best. But the connection between Grotsonger and Moskstraumen, on the other hand, seems to be very well established in historical Norse mythology. Moskstraumen seems to have been a fascination for pre-modern authors to write about. Historia Norwegi, a history of Norway written in the 12th century, around the same time as the Prose Edda, references Moskstraumen, saying, "Here to the north lies the very deep fjord which encloses within itself Charybdis, Scylla, and inescapable whirlpools." These whirlpools were confirmed to be in reference to Moskstraumen by historian Lionel D. Parabo in a paper about Scandinavian pre-modern literature. Charybdis and Scylla are sea monsters from Greek mythology, implying once again that Moskstraumen is heavily associated with mythology. Is it a stretch to say that if Minecraft developers had Moskstraumen in mind while adding the Heart of the Sea, there's some connection to myths from the region? I'm not saying the Heart of the Sea is Grody, or that a conduit is some kind of contraption made to harness the divine powers of the magic millstone. I'm just saying that maybe there's some concepts from the story of Grotsonger that played a role in the development of the extremely unique Minecraft item. For the sake of fun, let's throw out some totally theory crafting BS as well. Grindstones are very similar in concept and form to a millstone. Grindstones have been shown to have magical properties within the Minecraft universe, stripping enchantments off of enchanted gear. Buried treasure chests contain large amounts of gold and other precious materials along with the Heart of the Sea. Remember that in the myth, King Frody ordered that Grody grind gold. I don't know, this is all just food for thought. It turns out that when I'm not super worried about rushing Prop 4 Diamond Armor, I have the time to slow down and let my mind wander as I loot the shipwrecks. In any case, I see a village, so I think I'll go check it out. I'm a little bit tired of thinking so hard, so maybe we'll just play the game normally for a bit. It's funny how things just seem to work out in Minecraft. I didn't know there was a village right next to the plains where I settled down, but as it turns out, there's one right on the shore of the giant tree taiga. As I boat up, there's an extension of the path made of spruce planks that seems to be a perfect dock to land my boat at. I don't think there's anything quite as beautiful as pure chance. Because everything is randomly generated in Minecraft, everything seems to be exactly where it's meant to be. The procedural generation of Minecraft reminds me of the game of life, a demonstration of complex patterns being created from the simplest of algorithms. I love spruce villages. Although they don't have the same amount of food as other village types, I think they're the most welcoming. As the sun starts to set, I'm thankful this village was here to provide me with a place to sleep so that I could avoid the treachery of the nighttime. There are no blacksmith houses in this village, but there's an armor station, so I get an iron chestplate and an iron helmet. The last thing I find in the village is a saddle, a big win considering all the horses back in the plains at home. I'm glad I found this beautiful seaside village. The little bit of civilization in the wilderness of Minecraft, it always feels very special. This has been an extremely short episode, but I don't think complexity necessarily dictates importance. I think a minute of exploring has its place in my life just the same as hours of research do. Originally, I had another long segment planned, similar in tone to episode 2, but I don't know. I think there's something to be said for leaving a video like this short and sweet. As you can tell, I wasn't exactly honest about what the series is about in the intro. In a lot of ways, it's not really about the Minecraft. I think there are valuable, enriching experiences to be had everywhere, and I want to see how far I can take that idea with this series. I hope you enjoyed the video. I plan on making a lot more videos like this. Until next time, remember that sometimes getting lost is the only way to find where you should be. This has been Soren Dubsky, Stone Age 1, and I'll be glad to see you next time.